Let me tell you a story whispered across Yoruba villages for generations. A story about a woman no man could keep, and a poor farmer who changed everything. In a village surrounded by green hills, a man named Dapo walked slowly down a dusty road. His clothes were torn. His face was hollow. His eyes looked dead. Behind him walked the most beautiful woman anyone had ever seen. Her name was Arike, the only daughter of the powerful Chief Fasola. Nobody in the village spoke. They already knew what was happening. They had seen this exactly 6 times before. Dapo reached the chief's massive compound, fell to his knees, and whispered, "Take your daughter back. I am finished." Chief Fasola sat on his carved wooden throne. He looked at Dapo with cold eyes and simply nodded. Arike walked past everyone without a single word and disappeared inside. The village watched in heavy silence. An old woman near the road pulled her wrapper over her head, leaned toward a frightened child, and whispered, "That is the 7th husband. 7 men have tried, 7 men have fallen. No man alive can keep that cursed girl. 7 marriages, 7 broken men, and not one single person in the village understood why." If you're watching this video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching my folktale story from. I want to know how far it has traveled. In that same village lived a young man named Ade. He was a yam farmer, not rich, not powerful, just a quiet, hard-working man who lived with his elderly mother, Ya Ade. Ade was the kind of man who helped without being asked. But despite his good heart, Ade had a deep sadness. He had no wife. Women wanted men with big compounds and heavy pockets, and Ade had neither. His mother prayed every night to see her son married. One evening, Ade said, "Mama, maybe my path is blocked. I need to see the oracle keeper." She nodded. "Go to Baba Agba. If anyone can see what is hidden, it is him." Before sunrise, Ade visited the old man in the sacred grove. Baba Agba cast his oracle shells, studied them, and spoke. "A beautiful wife is coming to you, Ade. She is your destiny." Joy flooded Ade's chest, but the old man raised one bony finger. "I give you one instruction. Follow it, and your life will change. Whenever anyone blesses you with anything, no matter how small, you must go back and give thanks. Always. Never forget." Ade frowned. It sounded so easy. "That is all, Baba." The old man's face turned as hard as stone. "That is everything. The day you forget to be grateful is the day you lose everything you love." Ade swallowed hard and promised to obey. Ade walked home with the old man's words burning in his heart. Be thankful. Always go back and give thanks. It seemed too simple, but Ade practiced it every single day. When a neighbor shared water, Ade returned the next morning with fresh yams and honest thanks. When an elder blessed him, Ade knelt on both knees to show real gratitude. Soon, his yam crops grew taller than anyone else's. The soil seemed to love him, but his biggest blessing had not arrived yet. Then, one morning, Ade walked to the river to fetch water. That was the day his life shifted forever. Standing by the water, filling her clay pot, was a woman more beautiful than the sunrise. Her skin glowed like polished bronze. She was singing a soft, sad melody. Ade froze, nearly dropping his pot. She looked up, and their eyes met. She gave a small, careful smile. Over the next few days, Ade returned to the river. She came back too. Her name was Arike. They talked, and Ade fell deeply in love. She was warm, but guarded, like a bird afraid of a trap. On their 3rd meeting, Ade gently asked where she lived. Her sweet smile vanished instantly. She stared at the flowing river for a long, heavy moment. Then she whispered, "My father is Chief Fasola." She picked up her pot and hurried away, leaving Ade standing in the cold morning wind. That name changed everything. Chief Fasala was the most powerful and feared man in 7 villages. But Ade could not stop thinking about Arike. That evening, he mentioned her name to his closest friend, Tunde. Tunde's eyes widened in pure terror. He grabbed Ade's arm hard. "Are you mad? She has been married 7 times. Every man who took her hand lost his money, his pride, and his mind." Tunde pointed toward the edge of the village. "The last one was Dapo. You saw him. He just sits under a tree now and stares at nothing. That woman destroyed him. Stay away from her." Ade did not listen. Instead, he went looking for the truth. He visited Dapo's compound. What he found made his blood run cold. Dapo sat on a torn mat, thin as a dried stick, staring at the sky. A neighbor whispered, "He has been like this since he returned the chief's daughter. That marriage broke him." Next, Ade visited the village elders. They confirmed everything. 7 husbands paid a massive bride price, and within days, the marriage fell apart. One old elder leaned on his wooden staff and said something strange. "It is not the girl who is cursed, Ade. Something else is at work. Something the chief himself placed upon the marriage. But no man has ever discovered what it is." Ade left feeling a deep, suffocating dread. Word travels fast in a small village. By nightfall, Ade's mother had heard the terrifying news. When Ade returned home, she fell to the dirt floor, weeping bitterly. "Ade, you are all I have," she cried. "Do not throw yourself into a fire that has burned 7 strong men. There are other women. Please, my son, do not bring death to our door." Her tears broke Ade's heart. The next morning, his second friend, Kola, came to visit. Kola did not yell. He spoke with cold, hard facts. "You are just a yam farmer, Ade. The bride price the chief demands will drain everything you own. And when the chief takes her back, because he always does, you will have nothing left. No wife, no farm, no future." Everyone Ade loved was begging him to walk away, and their warnings made perfect sense. But Ade could not shake Arike's sad smile from his mind. He could not forget her gentle voice. He made a final decision. He would visit Baba Agba one last time. He reached the sacred grove before the sun came up. Ade knelt and told the old oracle keeper everything. The 7 failed marriages, the warnings, the broken men. "Is this woman meant for me?" Ade asked with a trembling voice. "Or will she truly destroy my life?" The old man slowly reached for his cowrie shells and threw them onto the earth. Baba Agba stared at the scattered oracle shells for what felt like hours. Finally, he looked up. "The woman is good, Ade. There is no evil in her spirit. She is meant for you." "Then why did 7 marriages fail?" Ade asked desperately. The old man's eyes narrowed. "That is not your question to ask. Your only duty is to remember the one instruction I gave you. Be grateful. Always. That is the only key you will ever need." Ade left the sacred grove with fire in his heart. He went straight home and told his weeping mother, "Mama, I am going to marry Arike." Eya Ade stopped crying. Her face turned to stone. She stared at her son as if she was already mourning his death. When Ade told his friends Tunde and Kola, they exchanged a painful look. "If this is your choice, we will stand beside you," Tunde said. "Even if we believe you are walking into your own grave." By nightfall, the entire village knew. People pointed at Ade, calling him a fool. The news quickly reached Chief Fasala's massive compound. A servant whispered to the chief that a poor yam farmer wanted to marry his daughter. The chief chewed his kola nut slowly, his face showing zero emotion. "Another one," he muttered. Deep inside the compound, Arike heard the news and whispered into the dark, "Please, let him be different." The next morning, Ade arrived at Chief Fasola's massive compound with his two friends. The mud walls were incredibly tall, guarded by fierce men. Ade felt very small, but he did not turn back. Chief Fasola sat in the grand courtyard. He looked at Ade the way a lion looks at a tiny mouse. "You want to marry my daughter?" The chief's voice boomed. Ade knelt on both knees. "Yes, chief, with your blessing." The chief stared at him coldly. Then, he named the bride price. It was absolutely massive. Bags of giant yams, expensive woven cloth, heavy pots of pure palm oil, cowrie shells enough to fill 2 large baskets. Behind Ade, his friends gasped in shock. But Ade looked the powerful chief right in the eye. "I will return with everything," he promised. For the next month, Ade worked harder than any man in the village. He sold his entire harvest. He sold a precious piece of farmland his late father had left him. He borrowed small amounts from kind neighbors, making sure to thank every single one of them with deep gratitude. His hands blistered and bled. His body ached from working long into the night. But his heart never wavered. He poured his entire life, his sweat, and his future into gathering the wealth. He was risking absolutely everything for a woman the whole village believed was cursed. When Ade returned to the chief's compound, he carried the wealth of a lifetime. Every yam, every cloth, every cowrie shell, he laid it all at Chief Fasola's feet. The chief inspected the items in total silence. Finally, he nodded. "It is complete." The wedding took place 3 days later. Drummers beat their drums, and food was served to the village. But it did not feel like a joyful wedding. It felt exactly like a funeral. Guests ate quickly and whispered in fear. Ade's mother sat in the corner, forcing a smile that never reached her sad eyes. As Arike was led from her father's compound down the dirt road to Ade's small hut, women looked away. One old grandmother cried out, "God have mercy on that foolish boy!" That night, Arike entered Ade's humble home. She was trembling like a leaf in the wind. Ade gently took her hands and looked into her fearful eyes. "Whatever happened in the past does not live in this house," he told her softly. "You are completely safe with me." Arike wept. For the first time in many years, she felt a tiny spark of hope. But outside their door, the village began counting the days. Everyone was simply waiting for the horrible curse to strike. They knew the chief would send his guards soon. They knew Ade would lose his mind, just like the others. Day 1 passed quietly, then day 2, then day 3. The village watched Ade's compound like hungry hawks. Neighbors walked past his hut, pretending to fetch firewood, but their eyes searched frantically for signs of trouble. Tunde visited every single afternoon, and looking at Ade's face to see if madness had started. "Has the chief sent any messengers?" he would ask nervously. Ade always shook his head. "Nothing yet." Inside the home, Arike was a wonderful wife. She cooked, she cleaned, and she smiled more each day. But every time a dog barked or a footstep crunched on the dirt outside, she flinched in absolute terror. The shadow of her past marriages hung over them like a dark, heavy storm cloud waiting to burst. Ade felt the suffocating tension too. He was hyper-vigilant, constantly checking the road, wondering when the curse would finally break his door down. The fear was slowly making him forget how to breathe. On the evening of the 3rd day, Ade sat alone outside his hut under the bright moonlight. The village was completely silent. He stared up at the stars, feeling the heavy weight of the unknown pressing down on his chest. Suddenly, a voice echoed clearly in his mind. It was Baba Agba's voice from the sacred grove. Whenever anyone blesses you with anything, no matter how small, you must go back and give thanks. Ade froze completely. Ade's eyes snapped wide open. He sat up straight, his heart pounding against his ribs. Chief Fasola had given him his beautiful daughter. That was a blessing, the greatest, most precious blessing of his entire life. And Ade had not gone back to say, "Thank you." He had been so consumed by the village's fear and the rumors of a deadly curse that he had completely forgotten the one vital instruction that started everything. He had taken his wife and simply walked away. The next morning, Ade rushed to gather what little he had left in his home. A few fresh kola nuts, a small pot of palm oil, a carefully folded piece of cloth, a small calabash of sweet honey. They were incredibly humble gifts, barely fit for a commoner, let alone the wealthiest chief in 7 villages. Arike watched him packing the items with deep confusion. "Ade, where are you going?" He smiled warmly at her. "I am going to thank your father for the greatest gift he has ever given me. You." Arike's face drained of color. Panic filled her eyes, and her hands began to shake wildly. She grabbed his arm tightly. "Ade, no, please. No husband has ever gone back to my father's compound after the wedding, not one." Ade gently kissed her forehead. He looked into her terrified eyes and whispered, "Then I will be the very first." Ade walked confidently into Chief Fasola's massive compound, carrying his humble gifts. The fierce guards stared at him in utter shock. The servants stopped sweeping and whispered loudly, "He is bringing her back already? The curse has struck fast." But Ade was not leading a broken wife. He walked straight to the center of the courtyard, where the chief sat on his carved wooden throne. Ade knelt fully on both knees and placed the small gifts gently at the chief's feet. "Chief Fasola," Ade spoke clearly, "I have not come to return your beautiful daughter. I have come to thank you. You gave me the most precious thing in your entire life. I am completely unworthy, but I am deeply grateful. My household will praise your name forever." The entire compound went completely silent. You could hear a leaf fall to the dirt. Chief Fasola stared at the young farmer. His chest heaved. His hands gripped the arms of his throne. And then, something impossible happened. A single tear rolled down the powerful chief's face. The chief stood up, his voice shaking with raw emotion. "7 men married my daughter. 7 rich, powerful men paid the bride price and took her home. And never once, not one single time, did any of them look back. They treated my precious daughter like a goat bought at the market." The chief stepped down from his throne and walked toward Ade. "Before her first marriage," the chief cried out, "I made a secret covenant. Any man who takes my daughter but does not return with a grateful heart within 7 days will lose her forever. I would rather keep my daughter at home than leave her with an ungrateful fool." Chief Fasola pulled Ade to his feet. "You are the first. You are the only man who remembered to say thank you." That day, the chief opened his royal storehouses. He gave Ade massive farmlands, herds of cattle, and chests of cowries. When the news reached the village, Ade's mother collapsed in joyful tears. The curse was never real. The only curse was human ingratitude. The story you have just heard is a beautiful African tale. Gratitude is the door that no amount of wealth can open and no amount of strength can break. The man who forgets to say thank you will lose what was freely given. But the man who returns with a grateful heart receives more than he asked for. This is a deeply rooted Yoruba cultural value. OP, meaning gratitude. In Yoruba tradition, after a wedding, it is proper and expected for the groom's family to visit the bride's family with heartfelt thanks for the gift of their daughter. It is not merely tradition, it is a spiritual act. It honors the sacrifice, acknowledges the blessing, and seals the bond between two families. Ade did not win because he was rich. He did not win because he was powerful. He won because he was thankful.